All right, so this video is about the search algorithm, and it's it's probably the most important thing, because do you know how much percentage comes from organic sales from like the search bar?
No, it's so hard to tell, because sometimes if you're ranking and not running ads, like you can't attribute 100% of sales there, because maybe Amazon is running some marketing campaign or retargeting someone that viewed your listing. Like, it's so hard to tell definitively where results are coming from or sales are coming from.
Okay, but okay, that's good to hear. But I heard at one point there was some stat. It's like 70% comes from page 1 or something.
Yeah.
So it's like general point is you got to get on the first page to make sales.
When you buy stuff on Amazon, I mean, assuming you do, like, how are you finding that stuff? You're going into the search bar, you're searching whatever it is, and then you're buying it, right?
Yeah, for sure. So this video is about, okay, so how do you think that, I have my own opinions, but like, how do you think that the search algorithm works? I mean, there's 560 million product on Amazon USA. Like, how does the algorithm decide which ones to choose when you type in a keyword? Like,
yeah, so in an e-commerce setting, right, the algorithm is largely concerned with how can I drive more sales, right? That means making money, and that means that someone is getting out their credit card and paying for something, right? So this is the biggest indicator of relevance. And in Amazon, their algorithm is concerned with relevance to a keyword. So again, the largest attributor of relevance is a sale. So if someone searches fish oil and they saw a grill brush, they're not going to buy that grill brush because that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for a fish oil. And so if a customer searches something and then they buy something, that's an indicator to Amazon that, hey, this is what the customer was looking for, which is a fish oil, aka a vote of relevance. And so again, the biggest driver of keyword ranking on Amazon is sales. And I touched on it briefly, but we think Amazon is concerned with sales history, not just sales over, the last day or the last hour. They're paying attention in these buckets of, 24 hours, 48 hours, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, and in these 7-day increments. And I think that the sales history probably goes out to at least 180 days. And Amazon is tracking. So what this means is, let's say you had a product that has been live for the last year, and over the last 6 months, it just hasn't been performing very well. Maybe selling, 2 units a day on average, let's just say. Well, competitors that have been selling 50 units a day, their sales history over the last 6 months is awesome, right? 6 months on average selling 50 units a day is very strong versus your 5 units a day. And so assuming you have this bad sales history, we find it a little bit harder for you to achieve ranking and maintain ranking.
So you're saying if you've sucked for a while, that it's going to be hard for you to get on the first page.
Harder, yes.
So you might want to do a relaunch.
A relaunch, but what you should take into account is how many reviews do you have on that old product. Because if you have a good number of reviews, 100 reviews, 200 reviews, it's kind of hard to drive reviews right now. So
well, then you would just add a variation.
Yeah, you can definitely do that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So if you did that, add a variation. That's why I always tell you guys when you set up your listing, make variations even if you never use them because of that. Sorry to interrupt there.
Yeah,
but
no,
that's like a lot of people. Some people aren't on our, the super high level, so I gotta.
Yeah, and so what you should definitely pay attention to is when you first launch a product, Amazon gives, this 14-day, star power or I don't know how to refer to it, but essentially in those first 2 days, Amazon really pays attention to the sales. So any sales driven through that are, 1.5x in terms of
okay, so the first 2 weeks are you get more weight.
Right. So we find it a lot easier to drive ranking. Like, you don't need to drive as many sales, and we see your ability to maintain ranking so much better. Like, we've had plenty of instances where maybe someone doesn't have that great of a product or that great of a listing, maybe not that great of reviews, and in that first 2 weeks we launch it, and it maintains ranking for like months and months and months, even though it's not selling well because it has bad photos or bad review quantity. But they're able to maintain that ranking because they perform so well in that first 2-week period. I think Amazon gives it, a little extra love to see, okay, let's give this listing a chance. Let's see how well it performs. And if it performs well in the first 2 weeks, Amazon, I'm paraphrasing here, but I'm assuming Amazon is like, wow, this must be good if they are doing this well right off the bat. So we definitely see an advantage in the first 2 weeks.
No, I could agree because I used to play what was it, StarCraft. And if you did great in your first 5 games, you got put into like the Diamond League or the top leagues.
Yeah.
And then you'd be playing people that way better than you. You'd get beat, but you'd stay up there. But if you got put in like the worst leagues in the beginning, you'd be stuck down there forever and it'd be hard to get up. So that would make sense, yeah.
Learning something new from StarCraft every day.
Oh, I learned lots from video games and applied it. I mean, everything is a search algorithm in these days. So, all right, so we need to get sales, but then we've got to use keywords though, because people are typing in millions of keywords. So where should people be choosing to put their keywords?
Yep. So we've done a lot of analysis around, so every one of our 30,000 product launches, we're tracking the keyword structure or the content of a listing to understand, and then tracking each of those keyword phrases in the search results to see how sales interact with those words or that keyword structure to drive ranking. And essentially, the biggest takeaways are you definitely need to be including, Amazon puts a lot more weight on your product's title when it comes to ranking. So you should definitely have, we think, although it's hard to discern, we think that Amazon pays more heavily greater amount of attention to the words at the beginning of your product's title. So include, let's say you have a fish oil, include fish oil, omega-3, all these high volume words in your title. To a large extent, we're almost keyword stuffing our titles to make sure that we have just as many high volume keywords in our title. We try to make sure that it's cohesive, it's still readable, but sometimes it may be a little bit quirky or has a couple little quirks. And so one thing that I like to say is, I would rather have, a 3% lower click-through rate, but rank for twice as many keywords. And so I'll give up the cohesion or that beautiful sales language in my title to make sure that I'm ranking for 2 times as many keywords or 3 times as many keywords. Because I'm going to get so many more impressions. And even though my conversion rate is a little bit lower, I'm driving so many more impressions and I'm driving so many more sales.
Yeah, okay. So at a fundamental basis, I've heard this before, do you believe that you get a lift for every keyword in your title when you make a sale?
Yeah, yep, I do.
Okay, so like if you really wanted...
In your listing, and I think title just gets that much more.
Okay, so like you could you almost rank for something that's kind of irrelevant by just getting so many sales, but the word was in your title, you think?
Yes and no. So it depends on the category. And I think that Amazon is doing a little bit more of this, but not to the degree that some people think, latent semantic indexing. And so they build these keyword clusters of relevance. And so if fish oil has this kind of keyword cluster and dog cage is so far outside of that, I think that Amazon sees your listing as a fish oil. Now, I do think you could get Amazon to now start thinking that this listing is a dog cage, but it would take a bit of work. You'd have to make sure that you're still running sales through it. So it's kind of a roundabout way of answering your question. Yes, if it's closely related. If it's not, then sometimes we find it hard to do. Yeah,
that makes sense. It's just basically saying that they use advanced machine learning and they know what words are correlated to each other to a certain extent. So no.
Some other things, so I don't think that we don't see that you need to have exact phrases in your listing. If you have fish and oil in your title, you do not have to say fish oil omega-3, fish oil pills. We do try to do phrase order. So it would be like fish, omega-3, oil. So then you still have fish, oil in phrase order versus having oil, fish. But again, I think these are small improvements or optimizations versus like if you have it in the title, you're good to go. Another thing that I talked about is you definitely need to have the plural forms of your words in the title. So again, looking at grill brush, let's say you're selling just one brush, you should definitely have brushes in your title as well, because Amazon, again, if you are getting lift for each word in your title, you need to get lift for brush and you need to get lift for brushes because Amazon treats them differently. So if you want a quick anecdote, we pushed something very similar. I'll continue to use the brushes example, but we ran a launch for a product that only had the plural form in the title, and we ran a launch targeting the singular form. So we targeted grill brush. They had grill brushes in the title, and we only got the single form to mid-page 2, and we're like, what the heck is going on? Like, we would expect it to hit page 1, but if we go and search the plural form, we saw that ranking really well on page 1 in the top 10. And it was because it had it in its title. Even though we're not running a launch to it, Amazon was giving it lift because it was found in the title.
Okay, so you could rank it, but so did you have brush and brushes in the title?
No,
or like in theory, like
you should, but in this example, we only had the plural form, and that's why it was hitting on page 1 and not the singular form.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're doing your keyword research, sometimes if you have brush and brushes, or you just have one of those, you will rank for both of them, but to get that
extra boost.
But to actually you will index for both of them by just having brush. You'll be indexed for brush and brushes, but if you're going to do a launch or try to rank, well, you need to have brush and brushes to start to rank for those in the keyword search.
Yeah, and I think that's an important concept. Just because you are indexing for a word does not mean, again, let's say brush and brushes, just because you're indexing for both does not mean you're driving the same amount of ranking power for both.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, and so I think back-end search terms, if you want me to mention that.
Yeah. So yeah, like where does the search algorithm care about back-end keywords? So we've got keywords. We need to put the most important ones in our title. Okay, so we put them in the title there, but then what now? Like there's bullet points, there's description, there's back-end keywords.
Yeah, so there's only, there's 2,000 characters available in your description, 500 on average for your bullet points, 100 each bullet point, and let's just say 100 in your title. So that's only 2,600 characters available in the front end of your listing, and then 250 in the back end. So 2,850 characters available, right? Like that's not that much space. You also need a lot of these, words like the and like words that help in the overall cohesion. So you definitely have to be choosy about which words you are placing in your listing. So basically the way that we do it is most important words in the title, and then the words that we have yet to include then go in the bullet points while still providing some beautiful, the trick is, how can I beautifully marry sales-inducing language with the keywords that need to be in there from an SEO perspective? Because if people aren't finding your listing, it doesn't matter how beautifully written it is, right? And then we go to the description. So for the back-end search terms, usually our back-end search terms don't have any of these words like fish and oil or anything like that. It's just the collection of words that we weren't able to put into the front end of the listing. Maybe it didn't make sense. Maybe we only sell like a green grill brush, but we want to rank for the words like black and red or something like that. It wouldn't make sense to put it in the front, so we'll include it in the back end. Or just so like if we write a cell phone case listing, you'll not see cell or phone or case in the back end. It's all these words that we weren't able to include in the front.
So one of the things, I use pet costumes as an example in the course.
Yeah.
So that's where we would put all the different types of dogs.
Right, exactly.
Because we're not going to want to put that. This would be great for a Shih Tzu, a Terrier, and no, you don't want to put that in your listing. So that's where you put that kind of stuff. Okay, so is there any difference if we put the keywords like in the description versus the bullet points versus the back-end keywords?
Yeah, so I imagine there's some kind of difference. Normally we treat the bullet points as kind of second order, then description, then back-end search terms. But I think the difference is probably so subtle that it is very difficult for us to discern definitively. So we don't have like strong data that shows us either way.
Okay.
There's so many different things going on. Like, there's so much noise. It's hard to understand things like definitively unless there's like a major difference, right? Which we see in the title, and that's why we know the title is more important.
Okay, so if you had to sum it all up into like what is just the most important part about the algorithm, like there's a lot of little things we could go into, but if people were to just get a couple things right, like would that just be it? Like all they really need to do?
Yep.
Like
just make sure that you're driving sales. Make sure that you have a listing where your main keywords are in your title. As many main keywords in your title as possible. You don't need to use phrases. Just make sure it's in there at least one time. That is the biggest takeaway.